Rain World is a very interesting game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, easily. And while it might not be for everyone, it has a lot of fun and cool aspects, which I'd say make it a really good pick to try out. As such, I want to talk about it. I've been wanting to for a bit, so here you go. And I will for however long this video is. A couple disclaimers first, though. One, this will have some light spoilers to the game, though I will avoid mentioning anything which isn't super basic or which isn't something you could kind of figure out quickly. So, super basic. And two, I have had a bit of a different experience than is intended for the game, which I will explain a little bit later in the video. But yeah. Also, if you just want like a really brief, like, hey, this is my suggestion, you know, maybe try it if you don't like this, maybe try it if you do like this, you can skip to the conclusions chapter, which should be on the video bar. I really, really hope I remember to put those in. Anyway, let's get to it. So, starting off with, I'd say it's a kind of important part about video games. It's just the gameplay. Oh, that was loud on the mic. Oopsies. But anyway, so, you know, you have the gameplay, which is pretty important for a lot of people. So let's start off with, you know, obviously the basics. That's what we're going to be going over. So you play as a slug cat, which is also often referred to as a scug in short, basically. And in this way, you're like a wild animal instead of like a human or something, you know? And this is reflected in a lot of parts of the game. Concerning the gameplay, it is very noticeable whenever, you know, your like main gameplay loop, if you will, consists of three main things, at least in my opinion. That's the food, the shelter, and the rain, of course, you know, rain world, after all. First of all, you gotta eat. Everything has to eat, so do you, so you gotta go find food. And it can take several forms. Two of the examples you might see in the tutorial are one, these like blue fruits, so you know, like it can take the form of like edible plants, in that case, or it can take the form of like tiny animals like bat flies, which you'll be seeing flying around on screen right now. Either way though, these foods will fill up one pip on your food bar, which you need to like fill to the indicated amount to sustain yourself. I don't remember the exact amount you need right now, and I don't feel like looking it up, but that's how much you need. It is indicated to you, so you'll be fine. So, now that you've eaten, because you have, and you didn't die and lose yourself in the vast expanses of the rain world, certainly, you need to go rest. So it's time to go to a shelter. Shelters will let you sleep for a little bit, and that will reset your food bar so that you have to find more food. This might seem like a weird thing to do, but it actually has some upsides, so it's like a necessary evil, quote unquote, you know? First of all, it gives you an increase in karma, which I'll explain in a minute, and it will allow you to escape the rain, which should be as scary as it sounds, because the rain is a really big part of the game, and if you are caught in it, you will die. It will kill you if you are rained on, so, you know, just be careful. And it will eventually come down after every time you go to sleep at some point. And the way to escape it is to go into a shelter, like I said before, and then you can not die. Anyway, that's kind of the basic loop of the game. You know, you grab food, you go to sleep, escape the rain, it's all that. And you get karma again, which I will mention in a second. But, you know, with that, you can throw in a bunch of unique enemies and other creatures you can interact with, or, you know, the environment, stuff like that, and it gets pretty fun. Speaking of the environment, though, because, you know, it's not just about surviving and running away from creatures. Rain World's also like an exploration game. And there's a lot of places you can go in Rain World. A lot of them are really unique. They have their own, like, creatures and, like, you know, fauna, flora, all that. You know, they all have their own stuff. And you can see something new basically anywhere you go. You know, it's like a whole discovery, you know, just a ton of stuff. But to avoid spoiling stuff, I won't show too much of this, because I know some people aren't about seeing stuff like that, even in little glimpses. But if you want to see, like, more of it, on the Steam page there, like on the store page on Steam, there's some screenshots, and the trailers will show you a little bit more, give you little teasers to a ton of stuff throughout the game, but I'm not going to show too much of that. Also, finding these areas isn't too difficult, because if you look around, you'll eventually find these big doors that require certain levels of karma to go through. So yeah, that's pretty simple, and these are like the basics of the game. You eat, sleep, explore, go through doors, and die. You will die a lot. Don't be ashamed of it, you know? It happens. It's a tough game, but it's a fun gameplay loop that is challenging and generally not too hard to be annoying, though there are sometimes it'll be frustrating. So yeah, that's mostly basic gameplay stuff, and I think it's fun. So I think it, you know, if you're interested in that, you know, might want to consider it, but that's not all. So let's get into another thing. The setting of Rain World is very interesting. The second trailer on Steam describes it as, like, after the old world died. So, you know, that might hint at, like, maybe a post-apocalyptic situation, or maybe the inhabitants left to colonize a new planet, or, I mean, they're talking about inhabitants, right? So, I mean, who knows? Well, actually, I do, but I'm not gonna tell you the answers here. But either way, the world building is awesome. You'll see these broken down buildings everywhere, you know, remnants of this mysterious quote-unquote old world, overgrown with plants, with wild animals roaming it as their home for, well, actually, how long is it, you know? How long has this old world been dead, exactly? Could this be, like, more of a post-apocalypse? You know, that's just another level of the mystery. And honestly, I don't actually remember the answer, so, you know, that's more of a genuine question. Because it's been a bit since I played the game, or, like, really looked into the stuff about it. But anyway, so, you know, speaking of mystery, this game has a big bit of mystery to it. You know, questions like, what is this world? Am I just wandering around aimlessly and my desperate hopes are for survival? You know, who left these weird structures? I mean, honestly, like, are these just natural? What happened to, like, if there were people who made it, what happened to them? Is there a point in any of this even? Like, do I have purpose here? Well, in short, to answer that question, there are things in the world that you can, like, work towards as goals. Like, there is at least one thing, is what I'm saying, right? I don't want to expand upon this, as in order to not, like, you know, spoil anything for people who really like blind playthroughs, but this isn't necessarily just blindly trying to survive in this world. So yeah, I will say though, as a small warning, there are points in the game, and kind of in general, that might feel a little bit directionless. Like, you might not understand if, like, there are pointers to things. So a little warning there, but in order to avoid spoilers, like they're the plague, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Although I should mention real quick, when I first played Rain World, before I understood how cool it can be to figure out mysteries like this, I kind of looked everything up, to be honest with you. And because of that, I didn't actually experience any parts of the mystery of, like, trying to figure out stuff about the world and, you know, trying to understand stuff. Because, you know, I mean, that can just be fun to try and figure out, and I didn't understand that at the time. So, yeah, I didn't have the intended experience. But, luckily, some of my friends did, and I talked to them about it to get some of their thoughts. They had actually pretty similar notes as me, where there is a bit of a lack of direction in some parts of the game, and that can be a big turnoff if you want more direction than you're getting. But also it can play into like a mysterious aspect where you don't know what's going on, you know? You're trying to understand stuff, and that can be really interesting, but it can also be frustrating and difficult for people to attach to if you're not, you know, if you don't feel like putting in the time and effort to figure stuff out. So, yeah. But anyway, overall, the world building of Rain World is honestly amazing. It's so good. It's so interesting, and there's so many details. You can like take a close look at something that you didn't take a close look at before, and you'll see all these like little things. And you put that with the already like pretty fun gameplay, and I think it's just awesome, because you have these like big discovery moments or like big exploration moments where you see something really beautiful, or like maybe you start like making theories in your head and you know things click together or something like that. You know, you're looking around, you're like figuring stuff out, maybe trying to understand stuff, and then you have that broken up between like a bit more like typical gameplay where you're trying to not get eaten. And it's just awesome. It's just really good, and I think that sort of pacing is great. But there is one more thing I want to mention. And that is the secret ingredient of Rain World. The like last thing they put in to brew the potion that is this video game. But it is what is, at least in my eyes, one of the most fascinating parts of the game, and it's super interesting. I just love it so much. Honestly, it's so cool. And I'd say it's one of the main reasons you should consider the game if the idea interests you. Though, of course, the other things I mentioned before are also big parts of it, and if those interest you and this doesn't, you know, no judgment. You know, enjoy the game how you like. But I think you might enjoy it. But anyway, the secret ingredient that I'm talking about here is the ecosystems. And I know that might not sound that exciting to a lot of you, but seriously, everything in Rain World is connected in some way, like creature-wise. You know, every creature has its role in the ecosystem, and that makes a huge, I think it's called like food web of things. You know, what eats each other, what doesn't, how they interact with each other in the environment, stuff like that. And there's a ton of different fauna and, you know, flora, and they all interact with each other. And this goes for every environment in the game. Like, you know how I mentioned that the environments had unique things in them? That then interacts with the creatures in that environment in unique ways, and that switches things up a lot. And you'll see these huge amounts of things all like creatures, all interacting with each other, and that makes the world run alongside you. Things will happen even when you're not there, and sometimes, for example, you'll see two threats coming near you, and then instead of attacking you, they'll attack each other or go for food, and they'll just ignore you. And I've seen discussion on this before, but to put my 2 cents on it, in this way, you're not necessarily the main character. I mean, sure, you definitely are from your perspective, but everything also happens around you. And because of this, you end up being like just another part of the ecosystem. And this might put some of you off, and that would be understandable. Believe me, I get it. Playing the role of the hero or otherwise being the big main character is fun. It's really fun. A lot of games do it, and it works. But what's also fun is your place in Rain World. Sure, you might not be the biggest, mainest character, if you will, but there's still a lot to be offered by just being a part of things. Maybe not every threat will focus solely on you, but you know what you get in return? The ability to watch those threats try to destroy each other and like throw each other around. It's kind of funny, but it's also cool, but seriously, you get to observe stuff, because that can be fun too. And trust me, there is a lot of observation in Rain World. So yeah, there's my thoughts on why you should play Rain World. I will say, Rain World definitely isn't for everybody. There are parts of the game that very well could upset you, and a lot of people just wouldn't like in general. It can be frustrating to die over and over again, or get stuck somewhere. And also, playing that role of like a non-main character can be weird and just less fun for a lot of people. And that's super fair. Obviously, just because you're watching this doesn't mean you have to get it. But I still think it's a good idea to try it, especially if you're interested in anything I've been saying here. Because it's just so good. I can't. It's just so good, man. I love Rain World. But the gameplay, it can be rocky. It's tough. Like I've mentioned, you can get lost, or you can just die a lot. But overall, I would say it's pretty smooth. Like, definitely most of the time, it's good, and it's evenly paced. The world building is just awesome. It's so spectacular. It's mysterious, and it's cool, and it's just amazing. And the complex ways that everything can interact with each other in the ecosystem is beyond interesting, and it's just so fun to observe it and try to understand it. So in general, I'd say if you like survival games, exploration games, or mystery games, you should probably consider getting Rain World. If you like multiple of those, then maybe you should go buy it right now. I'm kidding. Obviously, you don't have to get it. And maybe you just want to obsess over it online, in which case that's fair. There's a lot of Let's Plays, I'm sure, but it's good, and I think it's worth it. So, maybe consider getting it. Also, one last thing. I should probably mention the DLC, because that is kind of important a little bit. So the DLC, called Downpour, it adds a lot of content, as you'd expect. It's a DLC. But I wouldn't necessarily suggest getting it unless if you know you're enjoying the base game. At that point, though, I would say it's worth it. It's good. It's very good. So, yeah. Also, in a handful of months from now, for the 8th anniversary, actually, in 2025, of the base game, another DLC is going to come out, which I am super excited about. Thank you for watching. This is my second video essay ever, so I know that there are probably some parts I could have improved on, and I'd love to hear any feedback you have for that. Overall though, I mean, if you're at this point, I assume you enjoyed it, so, you know, please consider liking and subscribing and whatever other stuff if you want to see more content like this, because I really want to make more content like this. You know, like why you should play this, or, you know, certain things about the game. You know, video essays, maybe some challenge stuff in the future. Hey, maybe even on Rain World, who knows? But yeah, also personally, I just like seeing funny numbers go up, so, haha. But yeah, anyway, see you soon, probably. We'll see, I guess. Bye-bye.